So I'd like to share our land acknowledgement with everyone as we begin here. Fleming College respectfully acknowledges that we are situated on the Mississauga lands and the traditional territory covered by the Williams Treaty. Chi Miigwech to the Mississauga peoples for allowing us to continue our work in your territory. I'm very thankful to be able to work and live in this territory. I'm now going to pass it over to Tom to share his slides and get into the core of the conservation biology. And as he's sharing his screen, I will open up with a proper introduction for Tom as well.
Okay, Brooke, just doing a quick check on the presentation. Is everything good?
It looks great.
Awesome.
Perfect. So I'll give you a proper introduction here, Tom, as the professor and coordinator of the conservation biology program at our School of Environmental Natural Resource Sciences here at Fleming College. Tom does teach courses such as animal disease and pathology, vertebrate biology, and dissection, as well as ecology and environment. Tom has spent his career in wildlife science, completing his degree in medical science from Western University and working on research projects as the Advanced Facility of Avian Research and at the Toronto Zoo. Tom is passionate about wildlife conservation and protecting species at risk. He is the senior wildlife biologist at Kawartha Wildlife Centre and is the liaison to Nature Canada for Bird Friendly Cities Peterborough, bringing his expertise in animal biology to help guide these organizations in making decisions that are ecologically sound and best serve Ontario's native species. Tom grew up outside of Pembroke, Ontario, and currently lives with his wife and 3 kids on a 50-acre farm in Selwyn, which he has turned into a grassland bird conservation project. His favorite color is green, and he has a completely irrational dislike of chocolate ice cream. So over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Brooke. That's true. And you know, chocolate, I was just talking to my daughter tonight. It's her birthday next week. And sadly, she wants a chocolate ice cream cake, which means, I won't be able to enjoy it. Thanks, Brooke, for that warm introduction and welcome to everybody. I'm very happy to be here tonight. I am hopeful to go through some slides with you, tell you a little bit more about the program, about some of the amazing things that we do here. But I'm gonna do a lot of that talking through pictures. So most of what you're going to see tonight is actually images of students and faculty doing the things that we are so proud of. So as the evening rolls on, and if you have questions about content as they go in, as Brooke mentioned, there is a chat function. So if you want to ask a question, you can throw it right into the chat, and we can come back to it. And again, or write it down or save it to the end. There will be questions for sure afterwards. I just wanted to reassure everybody of that. Okay, without further ado, I want to introduce you to our program. Conservation biology is truly a one-of-a-kind program in Ontario. It's dedicated specifically to animal conservation. So aside from some of the other programs in our suite, like forestry and some others here at Fleming, this one really is specific to animals. Although we do learn about habitats, we do assess habitats, but with really a conservation animal context. We do need to know where animals, are found and what they eat and what their diet is. But again, it is from a species at risk as also, modeling species perspective. We do a lot of cutting edge research and we do a lot of practical field techniques. This program is not just me though. I want to introduce you via these pictures to some of the other amazing humans that I get to teach with on a daily basis. So starting from the left-hand side, Olivia Vandersanden, who's a vet tech with our program. So she's helping me in the animal disease and pathology labs and teaching terrestrial ecosystems. Tom Brook is next in that, and you can see him in his natural habitat on the water in a boat, teaching about algae and plankton. And then my colleague Braden, who's currently wrestling a shark, but again is actually an entomologist by trade and an amazing ability to identify terrestrial insects of all shapes and forms. And then last but not least on the right, Erin Magali, who's currently working on one of her projects this summer, which was wooden spoons, but can be found in pollinator gardens and insects and aquatic ecosystems like no other. So this is a collaborative project. this program, and I'm so proud of the team that we've put together over the years, who all bring something a little unique and a little different to the table. So I work with vertebrates and animals that have backbones, and a lot of my colleagues work with insects or bugs, and some of them work on land, some of them work on water. And between all of us, we have a really good coverage of, everything we want to really cover in the program. So what do we do? This is a good question. What do we do in conservation biology? Yes, we certainly work with animals. Yes, we certainly identify habitats and work with the landscape as well. But, part of understanding conservation is really understanding the needs of the environment as it is. So that's understanding the problems that exist, but also understanding and looking at possibilities to improve habitat or improve population dynamics. So a lot of the work we do with our programs will involve things like learning different species that exist in a particular area, not just in Ontario, but actually, Canada-wide and even global-wide, using case studies of conservation from around the world. There are a lot of field techniques. So you'll see, as I reference pictures as we go through some of the more specific content, you will see lots of examples of students out in the field in all weather conditions doing the work in which, those animals may be found. We also, in our program, it's pretty unique, is that we have a very strong lab techniques component. And what I mean by that is we're one of the only programs that is going to be actively embedding eDNA analysis, anatomy and disease, animal handling directly into the program curriculum. Because a lot of what we do in conservation is looking at these sources of data from the environment and then use them to model populations or figure out what kind of animals are there in the first place by using DNA from the environment. So we are very proud of our lab techniques course. We're using equipment that is quite truly cutting edge. It's found nowhere else in our suite of programs at Fleming or even in this region of Ontario. And we work very closely with partners who are also doing that work. So some of our faculty are actually working for the ministry doing this work as well, and we're very fortunate to have that connection. We also do a lot of GIS, a lot of field map surveying. So what that means is, our students are going out, they're collecting data, they're pointing, they're using maps to design polygons, assess habitat, and also population diversity. And of course, maybe not the most thrilling component, but absolutely probably the most important, if we think about it, is policy and how we manage populations, how we manage habitat, how we manage property, how the law intersects as it relates to animals and land use patterns. So these are all sort of high level components and things that we do in the program. So some of the pictures, just before I move on, these are pictures actually from some of the courses I've taught. And so you see, hands-on, very much so, with species ranging from around the world, both domestic and native. We do have a very strong connection with our ministry and certainly local, parks and Parks Canada, where if there are, native or invasive wildlife that are found that are deceased, they get donated to us, and we, are able to use them under an educational permit for the purposes of our course. So our students are able to really be up close and personal and do quite amazing techniques using animals that are truly found in the environment. So we're very fortunate in that way. So what are some of the specific things that we do? Well, we definitely use at-risk and model species as focal organisms. And we use that to essentially teach key conservation biology concepts. So that's things like population dynamics, how we assess a habitat for certain characteristics, and also how we examine threats, whether that threat be policy-based violation or, in fact, an environmental contamination. We use a focal animal, for in this case a salamander, and we'll put that into context. So our students will go out and do an assessment all around a particular model species. And doing that, it provides some real world application and also some direct, connection to the animals in which they're trying to assess. So that sort of idea of focusing on animals in the concept of where they fit in the ecology of an area is very important to us as a program. And through that work, our students gain a tremendous amount of field experience. We have field camp built into this program, as well as field trips and all kinds of practical outdoor activities. We're very fortunate at Fleming that we have access to this in our own backyard, many of it. But we do quite a bit of field experience both terrestrial, so on the landscape, but also aquatic surveys, pollinator monitoring. So, key faculty in our program have, reimagined a pollinator garden here on campus. We've turned it into a living laboratory where we use actively, and as well as to identify species. So, I mean, again, really, this is about establishing that curiosity. We want to not only just focus on animals that, have backbones like turtles and fish, but also the other things that are existing, the insects, the invertebrates, the crayfish, all of those are part of this big food system and this ecological environment. And so by learning and identifying them, we sort of see and learn where they fit into the grand scheme of all the things that make up a conservation biology mandate. So as part of these techniques, we have our students directly engaged with using quite specialized equipment. So telemetry is a big one. So we see our student Joseph here is demonstrating some of that, monitoring. Pit tagging as well, and that includes everything from invertebrates through to animals that do have vertebrae as well, fish included. Habitat assessments, insect sampling, camera trapping, and other emerging tools like hair traps for eDNA and other components as well that we use to monitor wildlife in situ in an ecosystem environment. Because this is a conservation biology program, it's really important that we understand how and where conservation is happening. Conservation isn't just a top-down mandate. It's not just a set of legislation that rolls down from the federal government to the provincial government and then down to a municipality. Government is a key partner in conservation for sure, but there are a lot of other organizations, whether they be not-for-profits, whether they be charities, whether they be even private landowners or private, organizations, period, that are actively engaged in conservation. So we don't, when we deliver a program curriculum to our students, it is important to focus on the curricular aspects. So the elements like, the learning that happens in the classroom setting, and again, the application that may happen outside. But we also want to make sure that our students leave our program with a really sound understanding of how to engage with other organizations that are actively doing conservation as well. So engaging in that relationship between building, a sound foundation of communication, and also that reciprocal effort is important. So we've partnered with a whole series of local organizations from, Kawartha Conservation to Ontario Streams. And you can see here that we build that as well into our curriculum. So, part of the field trip will be actually learning through planting, learning through doing with and for an organization that is actively following a conservation plan. So our students aren't just learning about it. They're not just applying it on campus. We take you off campus and then we actually get to meet the people doing the work and you get to be part of that. So again, this is all part of kind of this holistic idea of realizing that conservation is broader than just a set of laws and mandates, which again are important and set the tone, but it's the folks on the ground that really are contributing actively to this. So here we see, our student Will here, who's delightfully holding his shrub, and you see some of the products of our planting here in a big group photo. Lots of smiles. The weather is not ideal, as you could probably see here, but yet our students are having the time of their life, right? This is all part of being, involved in that conservation effort. And then knowing that you've planted that will be part of that legacy going forward. Another key component of our program is applied research. So I think this is one of the things that really sets our program apart. And we will talk about, some other programs here at Fleming in a moment, but applied research is something I'd like to stick in your mind for a minute, because we're really interested in students that are curious, that ask questions, because what we do is we build our students up over 4 semesters to get into a final capstone course of applied research where our students get to make their own applied research conservation project. They get to design and execute it, and they get to do so in conjunction with faculty for sure, but also partners that are doing this work actively. So we have projects ranging from, doing applied research on determining the best way for a cricket farm to harvest the frass, the waste of the crickets, and use it as a fertilizer. But what's the best way to do that? And so the students are designing the experiments, and do we bake it? Do we, add it to this? And they actually come up then with a recommendation back to the partner. And so as we go through the program, applied research and asking critical questions and coming up with ideas is absolutely paramount. This is something we're quite proud of. So if our students come out and they go right into working in the conservation field, that's amazing. They'll come out with really good critical thinking and problem solving skills. But if they decide to go onwards, if you decide that maybe Fleming is a great starting point, but you're inspired to do more and you want to take this into a pathway program at one of our partner universities, you can do that. You're well set up to succeed because our program builds in this whole applied research element through everything that we do. So I'll just point to two examples here. So here we have students, again, actively involved in some research looking at buckthorn extraction. Buckthorn is a horrifically invasive shrub. It's, has run rampant through southern Ontario. It's caused major impacts on the habitat, for many species. We're engaged in different techniques in removal. So extractigators or pulling or cutting or, using of different things and testing the efficacy of those techniques. On the other hand, we also deal a lot with partners like the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. Actually, a former student of ours last year worked for the department over the summer, and they had a project idea where they had collected all these lamprey, and they needed to actually see if the weights had changed year to year. They had some historical data. So they actually gave us these lamprey, and our students were able to be involved directly in this DFO work. So very cool stuff that we do, and gives our students, again, that hands-on experience to be able to live conservation in a real way. Now, that's a lot of work. We talked a lot about work and what we do and kind of how we bring that to the table, but there's also a lot of this, when we're at field camp or, at the end of a long day of being outside, like there is a lot of this. There's a lot of campfires and there's a lot of beautiful lakes and there's a lot of good times. Actually, I realized this bottom picture here on the right, that's actually me doing a headstand. I promised the students that if they actually completed this one task that I'd do it, and here we are. So we do have a good time. It's a lot of work for sure. We have a good time doing it, but we also have to balance that with developing some really good, solid relationships with each other. And again, that's about that team building aspect, which is important. Conservation is a team effort. It's something that involves multiple people, usually from multiple levels of organization. And so learning and building relationships in school, in your lab cohorts, that's that first step, right? To being able to do this as a profession. So there is this. And then there's also some really cool other stuff too. We're very fortunate here at Fleming that we've got some pretty amazing specialized facilities. So we've got some wildlife labs, which are really, really phenomenally unique. The stainless steel fridges, freezers of industrial size that can have specimens that our students get to work with that, again, are phenomenally unique. Like here we're holding, well, many of us are holding a absolutely enormous albino Burmese python. And so our students have the opportunity to be involved in work that involves things like that, including, beavers and turtles and great blue herons, as you see in the other pictures, and learn from them, learn from them in the sense that as these animals get donated to us, we make sure from an educational value that our students are getting, absolutely the full experience, the anatomy, the disease analysis, all of that information that we collect as students goes back to the respective ministries from which they come. We have relationships with the Turtle Trauma Center, for example, where there are turtles that do deceased will come to us, and then we can determine causes of death. And again, that information filters back. So there's a lot of good relationship that we have and a lot of really unique hands-on experiences that we can build in given the facilities we have. Outside of the classroom, our students are super active. We have some amazing experiences to get involved that is going a little bit extracurricular. And I'll point to just a couple, but there are more out there. The Fleming Bird Conservation Committee is one. It was started by students out of the conservation biology program. And every year they put on events, both fall and winter, with live birds. You see Zach Steele, actually a former graduate, comes back. He's a falconer, registered falconer. He'll come back and, bring live birds in and sort of do a bird safety component. We have our students down here in the bottom right corner, with specimens of birds and teaching the public about birds. And so again, actually February 5th, which is, believe it or not, next week, is the Birds and Brews event, organized by this committee. Again, mostly ConBio students, open to everyone at the college, but started and sort of the heart and soul being in conservation biology. This group specifically has a mandate to make Fleming College the first bird safe college in Canada. So lots of good work happening. And if you visit our campus, you'll see that many of the windows have protective decals to avoid window collisions. And that all came from grant research from this committee. I think about $30,000 our students have essentially successfully been acquired to fund the development of these bird safe actions on campus. So tremendous work led by our students. We also have other clubs. So this is CDEDS, the Collegiate Denizens of Ethical Dead Stuff. And so all the animals that come through our lab, the feathers, the other components of it, we don't want anything to go to waste. So they will be returned to our partners, whether they be Indigenous communities. They will be returned to be put on display for educational value. So here our students are, processing skulls, getting ready to glue them back together. They're, again, working with FLAP Canada, which is the Fatal Light Awareness Program partner that we have. They send us all of their birds that, were not being able to be identified by their volunteers. They send them to us, and our students actually work through them, identify them, and then put them into their database. So again, some really neat hands-on application for our students to have experience in IDing species, because we've developed relationship with partners over the years. So again, just some pretty unique things that we do in conservation to make sure that as we, engage in conservation, we want to be absolutely ensuring that we are doing absolutely everything right for these animals and making sure that we value them from an educational perspective to the nth degree. And there's sociality. I'm so proud of our conservation biology students, our student government, which is, conservation biology works through the student government specifically to put on ConBio specific events. I'll just talk about two. In November past, we did a Smart Cookies night where faculty actually were able to bring in some cookies, and students got to come to this event and vote on their favorite cookie and their least healthy cookie. And some faculty made things with mealworms, and it was all great. It was all fun. But the point is that in the student government building, we had tables set up with course names, and students could take their cookies and go and study at a table. And the faculty, were at that table and, helping study and building that connection. So again, our student active government is so amazing to be able to promote things for ConBio students outside of the classroom. Tomorrow, we're starting our first debate series of the year. So this is voted on by students at the beginning of every year. They give a list of topics, and then the student government organizes this event. So our topic for tomorrow, which I'm debating myself, I actually debate both sides, is invasive species. Do they deserve to die? And that sounds a bit morbid, but actually we talk about some of the ways, and we bring in some of the curricular elements around what invasive species are doing and how different techniques are in place to manage them. And it's a fun debate. It's a theatrical performance that has a lot of really good educational value. So for an hour, I debate myself, and students actually vote on who's the winner by moving to different sides of the room. And at the end, we have a great discussion unpacking, how were you persuaded and why. It's a really good tool to get at some of that communication with, stakeholders idea. And again, following that is movie screening. So we do these about 3 or 4 times a semester, and it's a great way to get out. Again, think about conservation, but in a very social, very teamwork way. So I say these things because, school is important, and we do a great job of integrating some amazing activities with our curriculum and do some cool experiences. But also outside of the classroom, with your peers, you can see how much people do care. And, we really do want to engage that as best we can. And as faculty, we support this 100%. We're actively involved in all these events. We're there, we're having fun along with you, and it's a good experience for everybody. Now, we have a number of programs in the environmental sector at Frost, at Fleming, and we do get asked these questions a lot around, I'm unsure which program is the best fit for me, and I don't know which one is which. They sound pretty similar, and to some degree, that's very much true. There's a lot of similarity. Fieldwork, as you can see right in the middle, is absolutely shared by all three of these programs. There is a large fieldwork component. In some programs, that fieldwork component is more than what it is in conservation biology. Ecosystem management, for example, is very much big picture ecology. We're at a landscape level doing lots of terrestrial and aquatic assessment, which is done through fieldwork. Fish and wildlife is another very extensively fieldwork-based program with multiple weeks of camp and active habitat management, and also a really strong, very firm emphasis on Ontario species identification of birds and mammals and even habitat vegetation. Our program is a little bit different than that. So there is still fieldwork components. I've shown you some pictures already about that. But remember, we're also balancing fieldwork with lab work. And that lab side, that DNA side, that applied research side, that species at risk side, that's where the uniqueness lies in this program. So, in the grand scheme of things, we do have 3 amazing programs in the environment. We do, and they all are tremendous in their own ways. So they do share a few things in common, but they definitely have some uniqueness as well. Interestingly enough, I actually teach in both the conservation biology program, and I also teach in the fish and wildlife program. So I actually teach across both, and I can actually speak to both of them to a certain degree. So again, I want you to keep that in your mind a little bit about there is similarity, but there are some differences as well. Okay, so we want to keep that in mind as we continue. I just have a few more slides, and then we'll open it up for questions. And I sort of phrase these by getting you to reflect on you for a minute. Is this program for you? If you're curious and you're passionate about the natural world, and maybe you're okay with holding a spider like we see here, that's great. We've got a place for you for sure. If you like being outdoors and enjoy hands-on applied research and are excited about big questions, and not just animals, but all life, then also this is a place for you. Here we have our field camp from the fall, and yep, it was a pretty cold day that day, as you can see by the snow and ice, but yet we still, I can't see all the smiles, but I promise you, there are in fact smiles. You have to like the outdoors. You have to enjoy sort of being in that environment. Also, you have to have an interest in biology. You have to kind of want to have more of a knowledge base around identification of these organisms. And you have to be willing to, potentially spend some time looking for them outside and enjoy that. Some days are nice, like we see here. Carson's having a great time with this frog, and it's a beautiful sunny day. But remember, it's not always sunny, right? We have to be prepared to go where the animals are, right? Go where the trees are and meet them where they are, right? And in all weather conditions, and sometimes in quite challenging ones. We also have to be able to collaborate. We got to realize that conservation is a team effort. We don't do this alone, right? We work together to get our job done. And with that being said, is that teamwork element, working as a group, working, as an overall unit to get something done, whether that's a big applied research project or just a lab assignment that needs to be done at the end of a lab. There is independent work for sure, but there is definitely going to be teamwork. There's going to be partnerships. There's going to be the requirement to do that. And that's not just because it's school. That's because actually when we leave school, that's what we have to do. Right? This is not a one-person show. This is interacting with a whole variety of different folks, including the public, all the way up to the government. And so again, we want to make sure that as we go through this program, that we're giving you the opportunities to practice those skills. And finally, and this is kind of a bigger picture one, this is not a program about wildlife management. We're not here to ID, to manage, to hunt, or to fish necessarily, although we do talk about the roles of those in terms of population dynamics, absolutely. But really, from our perspective, this is a conservation program. So we do want to see a future where wildlife and people thrive together. And sometimes that thriving together means separation, right, in preserves or in reserves that are held distinct. And sometimes it's not. So exploring how we approach a future where humans and wildlife interact hopefully better than what we are now, that's really what we want. We want those ideas, and that's where that research comes in, about building towards a future that's more integrative, but also respectful to the wildlife around us. Okay, that's what I have to say about the program. So I really do appreciate and thank you for listening. Again, I'm happy to. I'll stop sharing. I'll stop sharing now, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have and have a little bit more of an informal component now to the presentation.
Yes, that was amazing, Tom. I learned some new things too. So for folks that want to ask questions, please pop your questions in the chat and Tom will answer them, or I'll answer them if they're more service related. So I see here one from Killian. Thanks, Killian. This program is even more, actually, can you see the chat there, Tom?
I can, yeah,
Perfect.
yes, perfect. So this program is even more in depth than I originally thought, which is very exciting. Is there a list of supplies that I should invest in, i.e. outdoor gear? That's a great question, Killian. And you'd be wise, absolutely, to consider this program and approach it like you would a hike. You're definitely going to need sturdy shoes. You're definitely going to need some outdoor appropriate gear, because as you saw from the students in there, they came dressed appropriate for the conditions. Now, you might have some of those pieces already, and we're not going to insist on specific brands or specific things. You will get a list of what that equipment would look like in advance of a particular activity. There are, however, some pieces of equipment, books, and supplies that will come to you as you apply to the program and then get accepted. You'll get a list of what you need to purchase, and those things will be in there too. Again, there's a lot of flexibility. Like, we don't insist on any particular kind of shoe or a particular model. A lot of that is up to choice. It'll just be a more general statement of, you need this kind of a thing, and then you get to choose from there. Hopefully that answered that question. So a question from Lauren: if I applied to the program without the co-op, would it be easy to switch into it? So our program doesn't have a co-op in it. So I think what you're saying is, if you applied to a different program that had a co-op, to switch into this one. Again, it really just depends on how related they are. So fish and wildlife ecosystem management and conservation biology, they actually all share the same first semester of courses. And we actually do see quite a few students moving between that as we get to learn more about the program. But again, we change, right? We have an idea, and sometimes we think it's one way, and then we go to another way. And we have 3 amazing programs all in the same field, with, again, different emphasis depending on what you're interested in. And so when we all start in semester 1, we take the same courses, and you can move between those programs very simply because it's the same courses, right? Conservation biology has one unique one that we add in, but it's just one different one. But it's fairly easy to move between the programs that exist here in the environmental sector at Fleming. If you're coming from another program, though, right, that's a little bit more distant, again, it's based on the transfer credits, right? How many credits you have from similar courses in the past, and then it's usually a case-by-case scenario. But again, it's hard to say. It just depends on which program you're coming from.
And even just to add to that, Tom,
Yeah, sure.
the option of the dual diploma and staying for one more year of study, typically
Oh,
a
great
student
idea.
can earn remaining credits from any one program that falls under that common first semester suite of programs that Tom highlighted, and earn a dual diploma. And like I said, and often one more year of study. So great way to continue to build. And
Hmm.
just to reiterate, just that one credit that's different for ConBio and Sem 1. So if you decided to choose a different program to start, you would need to pick up that one extra semester. Um,
One extra course.
One extra course. Sorry, yes, one extra course. Thanks, Tom.
No,
Um,
and Brooke, you're so right to mention that because I didn't even mention that, but the dual diploma is really neat. Like you do one diploma and then you come back and get a second one and you go right into the third semester, so the second year of the second one. So you, in just 8 months, basically, you have a whole second credential. So that's a really powerful thing. So they are built for that, which is pretty unique, and I haven't seen that in many other educational institutes. So we're pretty special, I think, here. So Dean has a question. How much of the course is taught in class versus outdoors? Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know an hourly I don't know an hourly proportion. What I would say though, unless it's a computer course, and even sometimes if it is a computer course, there's always outdoor components in every course. Like they'll be taking you outside to do something of anything, right? There is a strong emphasis of being outdoors at Fleming in general. We're very proud of that here at Frost. So even in math, I'm thinking of first semester math. I mean, how more indoorsy can you get? But yet, our math faculty, who we work very closely with and share examples, when they're actually teaching out concepts like creating a polygon or making a perimeter of a bog, you have to learn your pacing factor in the field. So what that means is it's like you have to be able to count how many steps you're taking to something because you're in the bush in a remote area, you don't have technology, but you have to know what your pace is, how many meters it is. So as you're walking through the bush, you might have gone 25 paces and you know what your pacing factor is, your multiplier, 1.45. So then you know exactly how many meters you traveled. That's one of the things we'll learn. So our math faculty, they teach how to calculate your pacing factor. So in math, they're teaching polygons, they're teaching, multiplication, all that stuff, but yet they have you out in the parking lot practicing and getting your pacing factor so that when you go on your all-day field trip in first semester, then you're able to use it. So I guess that's a good example. Like even in math, right? They're taking you outside and they're doing something with you. So I think that's a pretty good example. Okay, Marco, if I wasn't sure about going to Fish and Wildlife or to ComBio, could I enter both to see which one is more for me? I mean, you could pick. I mean, because again, as Brooke and I said, they're almost exactly the same in semester one, minus ComBio has an extra course. So as a result, like as you're going through that first semester, you do have the ability to switch. In some ways, it's easier to start in ConBio because you get that extra course built in first, because if you start without it, then you do have to add it in another semester. But it depends. Like you really do want to think about, where do I fit, where am I more likely to be, and that, trust your gut. Like 9 times out of 10, I would say, of the students we've got and that I've been here for some time, they second guessed themselves and had to switch later. Like they're like, oh, I meant to apply to this one, but then I talked myself into this one, and then but I want to go back. Like it happens all the time. So I would say, Marco, my piece of advice is, you're gonna know, and just go with it. Like literally, just go with your gut on this one. But knowing that if you do want to change, right, to one of the other environmental programs, it's quite easy to do that. Okay, Sherry, what are the most common career paths with this diploma? Well, that's a really hard question. Conservation is everywhere. So we have folks that work for the municipal government is, conservation and waste in a waste department. A phenomenal job, working at composting and conserving, all of that. That's one avenue. Like I said, Karsten is working for the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, catching lamprey. So like, government is one, private sector, NGOs, summer, like you name it. Like there's so many ways in which you could take this. So much of it depends on where you want to go. A lot of work in conservation can be remote, right? It can be it can be far, Northern Ontario, Northern Canada. It can be international. There can be lots of different places where this happens. And, it, it's a hard question to answer because it depends so much on, your willingness to travel and where you want to live and what you want to do. So I would say there's a lot of options there, but it is difficult to pinpoint. This is not a program that has like one career pathway at the end of it. This is not that. This could be any number of different things.
And
What other?
just to
Oh, sorry.
highlight on that
Sorry,
too,
Brooke.
Tom. Oh, just to echo what Tom is saying and to bring to your attention, we have a career fair that happens every year. It's coming up in March, where we invite these employers on site to connect with students for graduate jobs and summer jobs. So it's a very exciting time on campus where we give you the opportunity to connect with key employers. And a lot of times the employers coming on campus are alumni. So we're returning to Fleming to connect to hire the next wave of students. So very exciting.
Yeah, that's great, Brooke. Yes, that's true. That's right around the corner, isn't it? We just got an email about that. Okay, Linnea, what are the requirements regarding technology? I saw you have a computer to run GIS systems. Does it need to be Windows computer? Can it be a Mac? Actually, if you go on the website um, for conservation biology, there's actually a section called technology requirements, and it's right there. I don't want to tell you what it is because I actually don't off the cuff know what it is. But I want to reassure you though that all the computers at the school have the software there. So as you're approaching this on like this in-person class, you could do all of your work from a school computer. We have Learning Commons, which are dedicated computers specifically for students in this area. So again, if you were worried about having to purchase another computer, I do want to reassure you that the college has the infrastructure for you to be able to do your work on campus if you needed to. But it is on the website. So again, maybe Brooke, if this is something, I don't know if you want to pull it up later or something, maybe, but
I'm
we
on
could
it.
look.
I'm going to pop it right in
Okay,
the chat.
Brooke's on it. Fantastic. Okay, question from Lauren. How advanced is the chemistry in this course, and would we also have the opportunity to work with live animals often? So first question, how advanced is the chemistry? I would call our chemistry applied chemistry. I think it's actually called environmental chemistry. So that should give you some insight into the kinds of chemistry we're doing. We're not doing organic compound naming like you might have done in high school. We're not doing chemistry that is anything related to the environment. So we're doing water chemistry tests. We're doing hardness, alkalinity. We're doing very specific measurements of chemical structures and factors within water because that is what's critical to determine, is the lake acidic, is it basic, what kind of plankton will be here, what kind of fish would live here, what's the oxygen level of the water. So it is very, very, very much dialed in to an environmental focus. And so because of that, this is what I found over the years is, this might sound terrible if there's any chemistry buffs in the room, but it's interesting chemistry. I'm sorry if that's offensive, but like it's actually relevant to the work that we're doing and learning about, because learning about the fish in the lake and the plankton and this, and then you're taking the chemistry course where you're doing the testing to determine like, oh, this is where this number came from. And here's this kind of lake water and this kind of lake water, and then test it and see the difference kind of thing. So it's more applied. And I think that makes it more interesting and more engaging. So I wouldn't say it's too advanced. I would say it's more specific. It's just a narrower scope of chemistry. I wouldn't say it's more so advanced than anything you've done already. Sorry, you did have a second question. Will we also have the opportunity to work with live animals often? Well, yes, tons. Most of them are insects and small Daphnia and OBBN sort of style of macroinvertebrates and microinvertebrates. You will be working with those all the time, like all the time, like all the time. You will also have the opportunity to work with some live vertebrates too. So we do have an animal care committee on campus, right? And they regulate us under the Canadian Council for Animal Care. So when we work with, for example, live fish, which you will, right? As well as, for example, when I bring in some domestic quail and we learn how to handle the birds. And Brooke here is very good at it. She's excellent at handling them and, how to do the standardized measurements. And we learn on these birds that are model organisms and they're domestic and they're pretty hardy and rugged so that, as we build those skill sets, we may be more comfortable with handling wild birds in the future. So yes, there is definitely tons of live animals. Most of them are pretty small, right? But there will be the opportunity as well to work with vertebrates, as I mentioned, with both fish and birds. Okay. And some small mammal trapping too, I should say. So there's mammals as well. We do set out traps for rodents and assessing rodent populations, voles, moles, you name it. So there is that as well. From Dean, is there anything we should do to prepare for this, such as required equipment or anything that would be good to learn or familiarize ourselves with? Well, you're here. Dean, this is what you need to do. You need to find out and figure out if this is the right program for you. If it sounds interesting, if this gets you thinking about something, then that's a good feeling, and that's what we want. We want you to be curious. We want you to be thinking about these things. But in terms of preparation, no. Like we do have a full curriculum that's going to take you from semester 1 to semester 4 and give you those experiences in the order in which we've designed them to be, so that by the time you cross the stage, you got it. Right? You've got the whole package from semester 1 all the way through to the culmination of your applied research project, where you're defending a research proposal, right? And the product. So I would say just keep looking at nature, right? Take your pictures, curious, practice maybe some ID if you want, look at birds, but you don't have to do anything other than just be engaged at this point, I would say. Okay, I think actually we've exhausted the
Yeah,
questions.
this is great. Yeah, we're all caught up on the questions. So we have a few minutes left. So I just want to share a couple of things with folks too, while I have you. I'm going to pop into the chat a great link that is future students resource, which will help make sure you're on track for a successful start at the college. If you have an offer already for ConBio, making sure you're accepting that offer before the deadline. It'll walk you through payment deadlines, how to log into your My Campus, all of that great stuff. We are having an open house on Saturday, April 11th from 10 till 1. So great time to visit the campus, meet Tom in person, not in his living room, have a campus tour, check out the wildlife lab, check out the insectary, meet Braden Evans and other faculty who are part of the teaching team and students in the program, and really get a feel for the campus. Something else to keep in mind if you are traveling outside of a commutable distance, residence applications open up on February 1st, and rooms are assigned on a first come, first served basis. Typically, we do see residence rooms full by April for a fall intake. So it is something that you should be mindful of. You can schedule a campus tour and we would be happy to show you residence before the open house, or you can hop online through using that future students link to navigate to the residence page and do a virtual tour there. I'm just going to pop my email in the chat too. And if you want to do the same as well, Tom, if you'd like to share your email,
Sure.
I'm happy to help students as you navigate. If there are questions beyond the webinar, I did mention that it will be posted online, so you can refresh and watch again, share with your friends. That's always a great feed too. But if there are any last minute questions, pop them in the chat. Tom, do you have any sort of final message?
I'm just gonna get something from my back cabinet here, which is
All right.
conveniently placed in this room. I'll just see if anyone can guess what this is. All right, I'll be right back.
But we appreciate your time and your interest in Fleming. We do offer a great community at the college. It is one of my favorite things about working at Fleming is the community that we offer. So if you're looking to build relationships with your faculty, your technicians, and your classmates, it really is evident at the college. All right, Tom.
All right, everybody. So in the chat, okay, we'll see who's the first one to guess. So I've got two skulls here, and I'm gonna just show you what they look like. So I've got a skull here. It's fairly big. It's like about the size of my skull. And if we look carefully at the teeth, we'll see some patterns. We'll see some big incisors or big canines, sorry, at the front. So, this should give us a clue of maybe the kind of food it eats. But really the key is these flat teeth, which, believe it or not, if you open up your mouth, look pretty darn similar to ours. So we got some
Savannah,
similarity here and some front. Oh, Brooke, do we
Savannah said
have,
bear.
it
Savannah
is in
said bear.
fact a
Looks like
bear.
yeah.
And Marco's even more accurate. It is in
Ooh,
fact a black bear. So this is, one of our largest animals that we've got here. In this area, of course, we do know, as Savannah mentioned, there are in fact two other kinds of bears in Ontario, polar, and then of course we've got our brown bear over on the west coast. But this gives us an idea just of scale. And then I've got this one, and I bet you'll probably be able to guess this one, but it's good to know. A little bit of a different skull shape, right? We've got some bright orange incisors that continually
ah,
grow, some really
Savannah's got
flat
oh,
molars.
Haley.
So
Haley.
Haley's a winner, and Dean and Marco and Savannah, well done, you. So, if you're already thinking these things, folks, you are well on your way. I would say you just rest easy. So you will be, as I showed you with some of the students, like some of the things that are happening in our program, but outside of our curriculum, you'll be with other people who like doing those kinds of things, right? Whether it's window decals or working with skeletons or identifying dead birds. Like, these are all things that, again, are part of this whole idea of conservation and trying to mitigate these issues. So you might find yourself among like-minded people that are interested in wildlife, love wildlife, and want to build a better future. So anyway, I'll leave that with that final thought for the night.
Amazing. Well, thank you everyone for your time tonight and for your interest in the conservation biology program and Fleming College. Yes, you're welcome, Killian. And thank you, Tom, too, for joining and sharing your knowledge. That was extremely helpful, I'm sure, because it's even helpful for me in my role. So we are available as well with our contact information if you do have follow-up questions, but hoping to meet you all, whether it's a campus tour or open house event or in the fall during startup. So thanks everyone. Have a great night and safe. Bye for now.